This is the Cover 3 Tailgate. And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Danny Kanell. That's Tom Fornelli. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your old podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 Tailgate, where L.M. Brooks jumped in before the show and said Day Trading Danny needs to buy up all the Devin Dampierre stock while he can before the weekend. We will be hearing from Day Trading Danny before we get out of here today. It is a Wednesday, though. That means that we take some of the biggest games on the schedule and we go inside the matchup with X Factors, keys to the game, and more. We call it Big Game Breakdown. Our thanks to everybody who jumped in and checked us out on Tuesday on CBS Sports Network. We were, of course, live and giving you an inside look at USC-Notre Dame. We took a look at Michigan and Washington, as well as the big-time game of the week that is Ohio State playing in Madison against Wisconsin. I guess anything else on those games that stand out that didn't fit into the constraints of linear television?
No.
I said everything I have to say about those games, damn it, and I'm not going to say another word.
Okay.
I mean, I think that the big thing for me, and we mentioned it on the show with that Notre Dame USC game, is I feel like what I saw from USC on Saturday against Michigan was that program turning a bit of a corner along the lines of scrimmage. But the next step is seeing them do that on the road, which they just have not done under Lincoln Riley at all. So if I'm not going to buy into USC, like they don't have to beat Notre Dame, but I'm not going to buy into the Trojans unless they go on the road and look like the team I saw against Michigan.
Danny, anything else stand out to you?
I just keep looking at it, and I see the number where Notre Dame is almost a 10-point favorite in that one, and I'm like, man, these injuries must be really significant for USC that we just saw that team. Plus, maybe Michigan was a little bit overrated, and we give USC a little bit too much credit for that. But I still look at USC, and even without a couple offensive linemen potentially, and even with a freshman walk-on running back, I still give him a chance with Jaden Maeva because I do think he's the type of quarterback that can minimize some of those issues in the run game and the offensive line. I don't know. I'm all over the map on this game because then I saw Illinois push around USC and get that win, and I think Notre Dame is better than them. So I think the odds makers probably have it right. Maybe I'm trying to talk myself into a little bit easy, a little bit too much because I like USC, but Notre Dame might just be that good.
A little bit later on today, Danny, I know you and I are going to be recording our top 25 picks as I was taking a deeper dive there. And granted, all of it is subject to change, but did you see the weather that we are going to be having in South Bend on Saturday?
Ooh, I did not. Give me a little weather report.
15-mile-an-hour winds and light rain. Of course, winds always are a little subject to change, but I don't know, Jaden Maeva in a passing attack and in the wind and the rain. I'm not so sure that that's going to end up working out well. I don't know if that impacts like an over and under one way or the other, but for the Trojans, not that they're going to be uncomfortable, but literally playing style. If it is windy and rainy, then that's not going to be. I think that favors the Irish in that situation.
Definitely. That explains to me some of the line movement you've seen. I mean, a more physical team, it absolutely will favor. The one that runs the ball better with the best backfield in the country, it absolutely favors.
All right. Let's turn our attention to Bryant-Denny Stadium. It is the third Saturday in October. That, of course, means that we are going to get Tennessee and Alabama. Now, the Crimson Tide clearly are surging. All they've done is continue to win ever since they went and had that disappointing loss in Tallahassee. Great moment for Florida State, tough moment for Kalen DeBoer, but they've continued to put together impressive performance after impressive performance. That Tennessee, man, I went back and I watched that Arkansas game. That was a little bit hairier than as I was sort of tracking it on the side. 4:15 starts always mess up my rhythm, but I went back, gave it the full view yesterday, and I think there's some things that are particularly concerning. Tom, I'll let you get first words though. As you look at Alabama and Tennessee, what part of the matchup stands out to you?
I wonder, like, trying to break down how this is going to go. Like, first of all, Tennessee's offense, it's, you go back and you remember it scoring 41 points against Georgia, and you're thinking, wow, this team's pretty good. They did hit a couple of passes that made you question it. But so far, if you look, and won't come as a shock because this is how it typically goes, but in non-conference, they were averaging 4.08 points per drive and had a 55.5% success rate. In conference, including that Georgia game, they're at 2.68 points per drive and only a 45.5% success rate. So, like, the offense has not been nearly as good against SEC play. And you look at who they've played, like, it's outside of Georgia, they haven't had the most challenging slate so far in SEC play. And then you look at their run game, like, I'm fairly confident Alabama will be able to run the ball against Tennessee. I'm not nearly as confident Tennessee will be able to run the ball against Alabama. So I feel like for Tennessee to win this game, you're going to be putting a lot on Joey Aguilar's shoulders, and this is only his second SEC road start. And no offense to Davis Wade Stadium and the Mississippi State Bulldogs and all those cowbells that are clanging during those games, playing in front of 100,000 people when they're cheering against you is a lot different than playing in front of 100,000 people when they're cheering for you. So how is he going to handle this environment against this Alabama defense without what I think will be a very effective run game? I think that's going to be huge in this game. And if he's not able to carry that load and make a couple of plays, this could get sideways.
Yeah, I lean with you. Tennessee leads the SEC in sacks, but you look at some of their opponents that they've done it against. I think they had 4 against Gunnar Stockton. That was at home with huge crowd noise impact. But that's the one thing, like, if they can, get after Ty Simpson, and I do think they have to sack him because he's made throws under duress throughout the season. Since that Florida State game, we've talked about it a ton. He's had guys in his lap. He's had to get outside the pocket. He is not impacted by the pressure. So I do think you have to bring him down. You have to make sure he doesn't throw the football. And I'll be curious to see, because that's the one thing that I think Tennessee potentially could do, is get after Ty Simpson, sack him, get him off his game. But we haven't seen anybody else do it. If it was in Knoxville, like the Georgia game, I would give him a better chance to do it. So I agree with you, Tom. I do look at this Tennessee team, and I think they're more what we thought coming into the season than they were after these first 6 games, which is a really good team, but I don't think they're an elite team in the SEC.
They got pushed around a little bit by Arkansas up front. Mm-hmm. And we're tracking Jam Miller's status. Remember, he left the game with a concussion. Kalen DeBoer gave an update this week saying that he was in the protocol. Don't know what we're going to get there. Potentially might need Riley to step up with some really hard yards, but that's going to be a big part of being able to keep that Tennessee pass rush at bay. If Alabama can run the football effectively, then this could end up being a pretty long afternoon. I mean, Tennessee has allowed 30-plus points to every SEC opponent that they've played so far, and the way that Alabama's offense and Ty Simpson is playing, like, I don't see Tennessee being built to win a low-scoring grinder. But if this game gets a little sideways and it's kind of a high-scoring shootout type game, Chris Brazzell obviously is awesome. And the idea that he might be able to spring loose some home run plays to be able to give Tennessee the scores they need in a trade paint, blow-for-blow type situation, yeah, I could 100% see that. So if it's what's the always thing? Like, if you tell me that this is the score, what do you think happened? If you tell me that Tennessee has 27 points, then they've lost the game. Mm-hmm. If you tell me Tennessee has, 42, then yeah, I could see something along those lines.
They still might lose the game if they put up 42.
Okay, agree. I'm not guaranteeing a win in that situation, but it's just I don't see 27-24 Tennessee. I think that they've got to come out. They've got to be aggressive. We talked a little bit about the old spitting on the sideline splits. They're all the way out there at the sidelines again. They're going to test Alabama's secondary, which I think has been pretty good so far this year. We can look at who they've played and play that game, opponent adjustments and all that, but it is not an obvious weakness like it was at the beginning of last year.
And to the other side of the equation with Alabama's offense, like I mentioned how Tennessee's has dropped off in SEC play. Alabama's has too, but not to the same kind of degree. And also, if you look at the schedule, Alabama's played more difficult opponents in the SEC than Tennessee has to this point. And I think the bigger difference is that Alabama's defense against everybody, except for Florida State in that opener, has been very good. And like it has held that same level of performance week in, week out. Like we saw last week, they went on the road to face Missouri, which had been one of the better offenses in the country, and they held them in check for the most part. And I think that is a key thing going into this one. And I also, like, sometimes let's just oversimplify things. Ty Simpson or Joey Aguilar, who do you got?
All day,
based on what
Ty
you've
Simpson.
seen. Yeah.
I mean, we've got our second chance expert picks. I've got Ty Simpson as my Heisman Trophy winner. You know,
I could see that happening. Yes.
Yeah.
Joey Aguilar being what? A solid second team SEC all SEC ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
You could be there. That could be you, Joey. Anything else, Danny, anything else in this matchup that's got your attention one way or the other?
No, I think we've touched on all of them.
Yeah.
I've got one more thing.
Okay.
He's not here. So this is Bud chiming in from the ether. It's the best passing attack Bama's faced.
That's a great question.
All right, so let's run it back. So, I would say Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt are a more effective passing attack this year than they were last year.
But not a great one.
But not elite.
Missouri, we have agreed,
not
is
elite.
Not elite.
Georgia, not elite.
Yeah.
Wisconsin, no. ULM, Florida State ran the ball all over them and hit a couple big shots, but not exactly what I would call a passing offense.
I guess that goes back to the opponent adjustment clause that I threw into my Alabama secondary thought, where it's like, okay, well, this is the toughest challenge for Alabama's pass defense in the 2025 season.
Correct. And we have seen Alabama get torched a little bit by this Art Briles offense in the recent years.
We will see. Kane Womack and the rest of that defensive staff will have their hands full, no doubt. Is Lane Kiffin fat shaming out here?
Yes.
Yes.
Fat shaming can be a good thing too. It actually can be positive peer pressure.
Yeah.
We have long heard about the infamous group chats, right? I mean, Lane Kiffin has talked about the group chats. And I just think, because Lane even had the detail about sometimes there's group chats within the group chats, something that is very relatable. I think Lane and Kirby are probably together. The Venn diagram crossover, like there might be one that Muschamp's not in. You know, there might be like certain ones that you don't in, you have to go start a new one. I bet I was asked about that. I said, that's not anything that hasn't been said in the group chat already.
No, to his face. Yeah, absolutely.
Kirby's making fun of Lane for looking skinny. Yep. And Lane's
do your yoga poses.
Yeah, and Lane's making fun of Kirby for looking fluffy. So these two, obviously, new wrinkle in the rivalry was Ole Miss 28, Georgia 10. You know, one of the lowest scoring performances of the Kirby Smart era for Georgia's offense. And I want to start there because Georgia's offense did not look great against Auburn last week. Are we going to get, what should we expect from Gunnar Stockton and this Georgia offense as they go up against an Ole Miss defense that, for my money, is not on the same level as last year's Ole Miss defense, but still talented enough that it can provide some resistance to a group that hasn't always been in sync?
I mean, I don't trust either quarterback in this game.
No Trinidad trust?
Not really. Not in like a spot like this.
This is first road game.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like it's hard for me to really buy in that he's going to play very well. I think that when you look at the matchup, he has better weapons around him in the passing game, I feel like, than Georgia does. Like, I think Georgia has talent at those positions, but I just feel like they're more gadgety guys than they are go down the field and make plays guys, which I think Ole Miss has. I think both of them can move, but I also feel like Gunner is far more chaotic. Like, there's a lot like when Georgia's on offense and Gunner drops back, there's like, and I'm not rooting for either team, but there's kind of like a sense of, oh God, what's going to happen when I see it going on? And then he'll scramble, he'll do some weird stuff. He'll take he loves throwing deep shots down the sideline if he sees one-on-one coverage, no matter what. I feel like, okay, I already know where he's going with the ball because it's just the one thing he does. I don't know how good either offense is, and Georgia's offense struggled against Auburn, yeah, but every offense is struggling against Auburn. Auburn's defense is really good, so I don't really hold that against them. For me, it's just a bigger picture for this Georgia offense. They had the 44 points against Tennessee, but other than that, I haven't really been ultra impressed by anything that I have seen. Ole Miss, like last week, they weren't as bad as the score looks. They put up 24 on Washington State. Like, if you look at the success rate, they were still very good. They just had sloppy plays. They didn't finish drives in the red zone. But you're going up against Georgia's defense, which we've talked about. The pass rush is not great, but I don't think Ole Miss's offensive line is all that great in pass protection either. So it's going to be a real kind of who finally has a good day kind of game. Yeah, Ole Miss's offensive line or Georgia's defensive line as far as pass rush is concerned. Then the other thing with Ole Miss is they turn the ball over a lot, man. They have a turnover rate of 11.4%. That ranks 95th in the country. You can't go on the road against Georgia and turn the ball over and expect to have a good day. So this is a really interesting game to me because I feel like in prior years, even though Georgia lost, like I always had a good feeling like, okay, Georgia's going to win this game. I don't have that feeling. And Ole Miss is a team that just confounds me and has all season long because they keep winning and I keep watching them and I'm like, yeah, they're good. I don't think they're great, but they keep winning. So maybe I'm just an idiot.
I think this is a game Georgia leans on their run game more than most games. It's probably a game where it's maybe not the prettiest. I could see some Georgia fans getting upset at the play calling. You know, why are we throwing it? Or why are we throwing it sideways? Why aren't we taking more shots down the field? But Ole Miss doesn't have some of the guys up front that they had last year. And I don't think they're as strong in order to go on the road and go toe-to-toe. What I do think, because I do think Georgia will score against Ole Miss. What I do think is interesting is this a game where Trinidad Chambliss and the Ole Miss offense steps up and they're able to get into, like, if Ole Miss wins, I think it'll be more of a shootout. You know, it'd be a higher scoring game. But I have a feeling Georgia's going to just kind of do that thing where they squeeze the life out of you. They get it to the fourth quarter and they pull away with a touchdown or a field goal late, and they kind of just take control of the time of possession. They have some frustrating, offensive drives where you have forced Ole Miss to field goals. I just feel like this will be a game where Georgia's physicality finally comes to the forefront, which it really hasn't been as dominant as it's been, in years past. The one thing they've been lacking. But I think they'll be able to kind of lean on Ole Miss in this game.
And do you guys really believe in Ole Miss's ability to put together long drives here?
No.
Because
the only thing I will say is that Trinidad Chambliss, his legs, he is a pretty good runner, and that's always a great neutralizer. Like, again, that's why I do think they could score, and it could be a little higher scoring, which makes Georgia fans pretty nervous if that happens.
Because if you look at Georgia's defense, they rank 7th in explosive rate allowed. And we all know how much Ole Miss and Lane like to dial up some big shots. It's like, if they're not able to hit them, I don't know that Ole Miss will be able to have much success moving the ball.
Remember we joked about the sliding doors. If the ball doesn't get punched out, this, that, or the other. But when Auburn was knocking on the door of a 17-0 lead, it wasn't because Jackson Arnold was like tearing them up through the air. He was, getting it done with his legs a little bit. And the vibes-related post-mortem with the sort of Auburn analysis of this team doesn't really know how to win. I think Ole Miss probably might have a little bit of a better idea of how to beat this team that they beat 28-10 last year. I think that we talk about X factors. I think Trinidad Chambliss on the 3rd and 8 is a huge X factor. When Georgia dials up some pressure, the coverage is back to the quarterback, and he can just go get that first down and be able to extend it. So that's a spot where if Trinidad Chambliss, he might be the reason they win. He could also be the reason they lose if he ends up getting sloppy with the football, because especially playing at home, I could see Georgia being able to really feast if Ole Miss does get in there and turn the ball over.
For what it's worth, you mentioned Jackson was able to keep it going with his legs last week. I think that's just been the game plan for everybody facing Auburn. Like, we even saw it going back to the Baylor game, where it's like, we're going to take away these receivers because these receivers are extremely dangerous.
Okay.
And if Arnold wants to scramble, we're going to let him scramble because we don't think he can beat us in the red zone. We don't think he's going to be able to make the plays. Like, when the field gets shorter, he won't have as much scrambling room, and we don't think he can make the throws. And I think that was definitely part of it. And obviously, Georgia also benefited from, the refs being on their defense on one of those red zone possessions.
Everybody clap your hands.
Clap, 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 clap.
Anything else from this one before we hit a break and turn our attention to Provo?
No.
If Georgia loses, I mean, crisis of confidence. We're going to be we're going to be doing some vibe checks with our Georgia friends, because this is not what the Bulldogs are used to. Georgia wins, then you're like, you probably don't feel better, right? But that's one where I'm looking at, because the Alabama game was at home and they lost close. Don't have two close losses at home to SEC opponents before we even get to the end of October.
If George, so I think there's two really good teams in the SEC. I think it's Texas A&M and it's Bama. And I think there's a bunch of okay teams. And I think Georgia's in that okay category. I think Ole Miss is in that okay category. And whoever wins, if Ole Miss goes in there, I think you start saying, all right, Ole Miss is getting really close to that top tier. And I do think if Georgia wins this game, they're getting closer. I don't know if I would put them in there because they are supposed to win this game. It is at home. So I think that's the only thing we'll learn is who's one step closer. I still don't know if I look at Georgia and I say, wow, they're going to be right there knocking on Alabama's door just yet.
But the thing is they have the raw talent to be in the top tier. The performance, objectively, the performance has not met expectations given the talent on that roster.
Right. But if Ole Miss wins this game, I think you have to start looking at them, taking very seriously as one of those elite teams.
I mean, it would be impressive.
A road win in Athens.
Let's see. And if I remember correctly,
they only have Oklahoma and is that next?
Yeah, I was gaming out the rest of the schedule.
If they split these next two games, they're probably in the playoff, barring slip up, which I guess we can't really trust them.
Yeah.
An Egg Bowl, classic rivalry slip up. But if they're 10-2, they still could probably slip up and get in the playoffs at 10-2, as long as they split one of these two.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And yeah, look, I understand. We've done a lot of sliding doors. We've done a lot of ifs, ands, and buts. The Georgia-Alabama game was very close. How are we saying that Alabama is in this tier and Georgia is not? I'm not looking at that one data point as much as the entire season. Right. I just think Georgia has – how about this? Georgia, good news. Georgia has yet to unlock its full potential. Bad news, time's running out. So now would be a great time to be able to hit that next gear. Of course, they've got another off week coming up in advance of the rivalry game against the Gators. Well, coming up on the other side, it is one of the great rivalries in all of college football. We're going inside the matchup for BYU, Utah, and more.
Next.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons. It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. First time since 2009 that both BYU and Utah are ranked in the AP Top 25 poll. Given where we are in the Big 12 title race, BYU still undefeated. Utah with just one loss to Texas Tech. maybe you could call it a Big 12 title eliminator game. It is super fun to get a rivalry that has this much pack. I mean, this is like truly the Iron Bowl of Utah. 306 in this way, 365 days a year. BYU and Utah think about how much they hate each other, and it is like the line down the middle of offices. I mean, this is something that drives them all the time, and we're going to get to see it on Saturday night. Very fired up for this game. Tom, either vibes wise, or we can go ahead and start picking apart the matchup. What's sort of top billing for you in terms of this one?
Well, I would look at the matchup, and again, Bud's not here, but I will bring in the ghost of Bud. Who's BYU even played? Like, if you look at their schedule so far this year, like they're undefeated. Should they be ranked? I don't know. They haven't seen an impressive team on their resume that they've beaten, and they've played a lot of these games pretty close. And
Bud, they should be ranked, because you know what a ranking is? A ranking is most deserving, and they are beating the teams that they have beaten. And this ain't a power rating. This is a ranking. And the difference between rating and ranking is a rating is what happens 10,000 times in a model simulation, and a ranking is what happened in this timeline that we're in right now. And in this timeline that we're in right now, James Franklin got fired even though he was in double overtime with Oregon, and Indiana has one of the best coaches in America that just went and handed Oregon one of the worst losses they've had at home since the Mark Helfrich era. So in this timeline, yeah, BYU does deserve a ranking no matter what their rating is. They got 0 in the loss column. Congratulations, Kalani Sitake. Keep rocking.
All right. Well, I mean, can BYU run the ball against this Utah defense? Because if you look at BYU offensively this year, even against that schedule, like running the ball is clearly what they do best, and they've done a very good job of doing it. But if you look at the Utah defense, the only time Utah's defense has had a game where I consider it would have struggled against the run was against West Virginia on the road. They held Tech to 4.7 yards per carry, which isn't great, but it's certainly not, horrible. But it's like they held Arizona State to 3.7 last week, although I think Jeff Sims being the starting quarterback definitely played a part.
Yeah, that's weird. We're throwing we even talked about maybe putting in a Jeff Sims rule in the bylaws for the locks.
Yeah, but I also think Arizona State's offense isn't very good. But it's just, this is the best team that BYU has faced by far, in my estimation. And because Utah, like, they got completely blown apart by Texas Tech, but to me, that game meant more for me, in my opinions, of how good Texas Tech really is than it is Utah. Because if you look at the rest of Utah's games, and I'm sure most people have kind of checked out on them ever since that loss to Texas Tech, they've been great against West Virginia and Arizona State. They were great in their non-con, including the UCLA game, Cal Poly, and Wyoming, and they looked far more like that team. So for BYU to go on the road in this spot and face, the Utes in the Holy War, a very, very tough rivalry game, this is very much a prove it game for me for BYU. Like, I respect the record. I think your record says who you are for the most part, but this is going to be a tough spot for them. And if they can go on the road, and they don't have to win, but as long as they play a close competitive game and they look to be on the same level as the Utes, I'm going to completely buy into the Cougars going forward as far as their odds in the Big 12 and reaching the Big 12 championship. It's just, I don't know how confident I am in their ability to do so, because if you start looking at BYU's defensive numbers, like, they've been great defensively, but they have not faced an offensive line nearly as good as the one that they are going to see here against Utah. And I just don't know if they will be able to, get that kind of pressure that they've got on other teams. And BYU does not have Texas Tech's defensive line, so I don't know how well they will be able to hold up against this Utah offense. And then at the end of the day, I trust Devin Dampier more than I trust Bear Bachmeier.
By how much?
Not like a chasm, but I think I trust Devin Dampier in the passing game more than I do Bear Bachmeier.
We've seen more from him.
Yeah.
I think this is a really interesting game because I think they both want to kind of do the same things. I mean, this is the top 2 rushing offenses in the Big 12 going toe-to-toe. They're both really good defensively. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a slugfest. And I do think potentially it could come down to the quarterback making the big mistake, potentially. A freshman who's been thrust into that role when Retzlaff leaves and Bear Bachmeier steps in. he's been pretty solid, but he hasn't faced this test yet. And with Dampierre, the one test he had, he missed practice that week. How much did that come into play? He had the couple interceptions against Texas Tech, and now he's got to go on the road and play a really tough defense. So I think this is a really evenly matched game. I think it's going to be a fun one. I think that's why the odds makers do have it at just 3.5 points for the home underdog in Provo. I think it's a really we're going to know a lot more about both of these teams. Because I'm with you. I almost feel like if BYU just hangs in there and it's a field goal game and they lose, I'll feel way differently about BYU. But I also wouldn't be surprised at all if that's the scenario we're looking at in the fourth quarter.
First of all, vibes-wise, Provo at night. There is a long checkered history of Provo at night providing all kinds of chaos. Now, that is not necessary. Usually we talk about that in terms of a team slipping up, right? I mean, that was like Avery Johnson's undoing a couple years ago. Like this would not be that. This gets every bit of your attention. You're not looking over it. This is not a huge upset. It's a rivalry game. It's a 3.5 point spread, but still, I think the environment is going to be awesome. So remember, Arizona BYU was in a weather delay.
Mm-hmm.
They came back, then it started raining again. And BYU was just like, you know what? We're done with the passing game. We're just going to hand the ball off. And Arizona's run defense, again, we can apply the opponent adjustments here. It's like decent, top middle of the pack, top half, I guess, in the Big 12 statistically. And to my eye, BYU's offensive line was moving them. And then they did not have to, Bear Bachmeier did not have to throw the ball in the rain because they were doing a good job. We talked about LJ Martin on here before. I think BYU's run game could be a huge, huge part to see if they can move it, because Utah is going to be maybe one of the best defensive fronts that they face all year. And then on the flip side of that, I think there's maybe some of the same disconnect that we see sometimes, where Utah has two surefire NFL offensive linemen. But in terms of the performance, the Utah offensive line fits and starts in terms of them really being able to take over a game. Those are two things that sort of are ringing around my head as I'm trying to figure out how to break this one down. If BYU can run the ball effectively against Utah's defensive front, watch out. But Utah on talent, on paper, I think wins the lines of scrimmage on both sides to me.
What about the student section?
Yeah, Isaac wants to know. That's a great question.
Do you have any comments about the must this week?
No, this is in Provo.
Which is this a more hostile student section?
I don't have a good BYU student section opinion here.
So you're saying
you just hate the Utah one. You just hate Rice Eccles.
No, I just think that the mighty Utah student section really struggles before lunch. I just think that the mighty comes from the protein that you get with your lunch, and then everything that comes after that. I mean, that's how you really have the little extra oomph. I mean, the M in mighty Utah student section is also for oomph, and you get that oomph from the protein that you get at lunch. They had a chance, they had an opportunity.
I think I said earlier in the segment that BYU is going on the road. So correction, they're at home.
Yeah,
so
we got it.
You don't need to send me messages.
Okay. Anything else here before we go to Nashville?
I look forward to this game a lot.
Yeah. I think we don't need to have a meeting here necessarily on the air, but we'll probably time instant reaction off this one.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Yeah, Danny, will you be ready?
Yeah, Danny, you be ready to rock?
I'm going to be in Madison.
Are you staying Saturday night?
Yeah.
That'll be fun. Have you done Madison before?
Yeah, I called a game there probably 7 or 8 years ago. I'm just very curious how the jump around's going to be.
It's going to be you.
Well,
I think they literally stay no matter what, just to do it, no matter what the score is, and then gone. No, they're not going to be there at all.
The Wisconsin student section can be notoriously fickle. And not Luke. Fickle.
And not Luke. Yeah, not for Luke.
Pun not intended.
Well, that's the problem when you live in a great college town. I mean, if the stadium's in the middle of nowhere, you could go back to your car. But I mean, when you can just walk out of the stadium and be able to on foot get to a bunch of awesome establishments, what are you going to do? but it'll be a fantastic time on Saturday. It's the number one team in the country because Saturday at 3:30 Eastern, it's big time in Madison, and Camp Randall will be rocking when number one Ohio State Buckeyes take on the Wisconsin Badgers. We'll get you set for kickoff beginning at 2:30 with State Farm College Football today. That's all Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. As Danny mentioned, college football pregame live at 10 a.m. and really all through the day, right, Danny?
Yep. We're doing a couple hours before kickoff. I think 12:30 to 2:30 local, kind of covering some of the noon games, getting the crowd hyped up. We'll see how many Buckeye fans show up. I'm sure they'll be loud. They're on the road to support their team. Should be fun.
Yeah, Ian in the tailgate points out that it is my North Carolina bias that understands the ability to walk out of a stadium and get to Pantana Bob's in about 20 minutes if needed. There might be some truth to that as well. All right, down in Nashville, it's going to be rocking because the long national nightmare is over. Vanderbilt is in a ranked-on-ranked game, and the Commodores are a favorite. Wow, Danny, wow. Who does this say more about? How about this? Who does this say more about? Does this say more about where Vanderbilt's at on the rise, or does this say more about where LSU is at this current state in the Brian Kelly era?
I think it's both, but I think it does. I think you got to give Clark Lee and Vanderbilt and our boy Barton Simmons for building a roster that, no matter how bad LSU is, they'll just come in there and push around Vanderbilt. That's just not the scenario that we're talking about right now. Like, you look at this game and you're like, can they protect Garrett Nussmeier? That's a very real question that you have to ask because, again, kind of both ends of the spectrum. LSU's offensive line has been an issue, but normally this would be your get-right game, and it is not anymore. I mean, I saw Garrett Nussmeier. I'm sure you guys saw the clip of him talking about how Brian Kelly talked to him, wants him to kind of get his swagger back. It's really hard to get your swagger back when you're not getting great protection and there's not much run game going, and I don't know if that changes much in this spot.
I will say this says more about Vandy because Vandy's just a better football team than LSU right now.
They've played better football.
Yeah. Yes.
Like that again. Like, this is where we go to like on paper versus in performance. Like, Vanderbilt has played better football to this point in the season.
I asked earlier on, like this month, I said, why can't Vanderbilt win the SEC? And you scoffed at me. Chip Patterson.
I did.
Bud Elliott.
I might have to.
Danny Kanell. You all scoffed. You said, Vanderbilt? Yes, Vanderbilt. And I think they're going to win this game. And I think they will take another step closer to getting to that Atlanta game. But I mean, Danny, you mentioned it. Like, LSU cannot run the ball because the offensive line absolutely stinks. They're also banged up at running back, so we don't know who's going to be fully healthy. Garrett Nussmeier has not been nearly as good. He's still above average, but he's not been nearly as good as avoiding sacks this year as he was last year. But a big part of that is because he's pretty much under duress every single time he drops back. So, the numbers are going to get you at some point. But I just don't know. Like, this is going to be a key test, I think, for Vanderbilt's defense because they have struggled against the pass in their last 3 games. And that includes Georgia State and Utah State. Like, it hasn't been great. So I think this is going to be a bigger test for them. And I also think one of the things we have to keep an eye out for is if LSU receiver Aaron Anderson is playing. He's very important to them because since he's kind of the shifty slot guy, when Garrett Nussmeier only gets about 1.3 seconds to get rid of the ball before there's a defender in his lap, Aaron Anderson is usually the guy who's open underneath and he can be like the release valve. So his presence is going to be huge. And I also think that, like, it's going to be important for Vanderbilt's defense to get pressure without blitzing because if you break down Garrett's numbers against the blitz, he's actually pretty good. Like, he's able to recognize it quickly and he gets the ball out. And even if they don't get a ton of yards, you're not getting, negative plays out of it. It's just when he's pressured naturally, like when you're rushing 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, if you want to, where he like really struggles, like his numbers completely drop off a cliff. So Vandy can take advantage of this LSU offensive line and get pressure without bringing extra defenders, which will allow them to keep guys in coverage covering these guys. I think they could have a very good day. On the flip side, LSU's defense is still very good.
Yeah.
They've been particularly good, not great, but stopping the quarterback run game. And that is very important, obviously, for Vanderbilt's offense. So
They
if
got that
LSU
last week. I mean, they're coming,
Mhm.
they're from trying to keep Lenore Sellers bottled up, now trying to keep Diego Pavia from breaking their back.
Exactly. So if LSU could keep Diego Pavia in check, can Vandy find other ways to move the ball on this LSU defense and get points on the board? Because it's not like I don't think even though LSU's offense is struggling, I don't think you can win this game 17-14. Like, I think you're going to need at least 21 points to win this one.
Last time out, we saw Diego Pavia 2 really, really costly red zone turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do that against this LSU defense. And I guarantee you they're going to be trying to strip the ball out. They're going to be, their defense is good enough to slow down Diego Pavia. So he's got to contain a little bit that swashbuckler mentality that gets a little bit loose sometimes, trying to make a little bit too much happen. This is one where I think he's got to manage the game a little bit better, which can be hard for him to do because it's kind of who he is. He plays that way.
Our best bets, of course, are going to be coming on Thursday in the Locks pod, but I believe Vandy's one of our big over teams this year. LSU, for reasons that should be plainly obvious, kind of been a low-scoring, mostly dead under team this year. Pace, scoring, what's our oil and water? How do we think this ends up breaking down?
Slow. I mean, I think that just the way Vandy's offense is designed, if things are going the way that they want them to, this is going to be a lower possession game just because they run a lot and they will be churning clock. But I don't have Bud's pace numbers in front of me. That's the one thing I don't have without him.
They've shown a little bit of gas. Danny, what's sort of the kind of score that you imagine here?
I would say lower scoring. What's the total? 48.5. Yeah, I'd probably say lower scoring. I think LSU's defense is good enough to make this a game, and I don't trust LSU's offense to put up numbers against many people at all. Yeah.
Last thing, and to your point, like there was low scoring against South Carolina at home. Now they're going to go on the road. Like it's, I'm not expecting.
There's also the 11 a.m. local kick, which I always, on those early kickoffs, I'm always sort of an under type guy, just slower starting for everybody.
It just feels right,
right?
Just as you're watching it, it's just, no, come on. Whoa. Got a long day ahead of us, boys. Let's take it easy on these touchdowns. Let's just warm up into the day.
I do worry. We had a couple people asking about the job security status.
That was going to be my one last note before we get out of here.
I do worry that if Vanderbilt's up like 7 in the third quarter late, I do wonder if there's some yelling on the sidelines. There's some significant issues that would stop cropping up for LSU. Dysfunction, unhappiness. I can't believe we're losing to those guys because they're Vanderbilt, and it could get ugly. I worry about a quit factor from LSU.
It is wild to me, and I understand it, but it is wild to me that LSU is 5-1 and Brian Kelly's on the hot seat.
Yes. Hey, listen, this is a big week.
Anything happens. What's his buyout? Do we have our buyout Google situation? Right.
Like, I don't think they're very good, but maybe, we should wait until they lose the games before we fire the coach.
No,
True.
I like it because it's,
Kelly to Penn State already. That's a good one.
Tennessee, LSU, you got, even Ole Miss being undefeated, and we'll maybe get a quick note on this one. Hey, Texas A&M's got to go to Arkansas. We got a lot of teams with really good records that we're going to, the purifying fire will find out what we've got from some of these teams in the SEC. It's a good week for that for sure. Well, coming up on the other side, we check in with Day Trade and Danny, plus a few more other matchup notes from Week 8 and more. Next.
Name's Conrad Harrigan, family man. And if you cross my family, well, you'd better pray.
Mobland, new series streaming March 30th on Paramount Plus.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast before we close things out with a few more quick hitters from the Week 8 slate. We got to check in with the market. It is Day Trading Danny. Boom, 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 boom.
We ready to roll? I was waiting for that. I live for that moment. Get my
I know,
own
me
little
too.
open for this. It's exciting. Market's open. Bell is ringing. Quite a few sells today. I don't know if the president made a comment about cooking oil in China again, but the market fell out the other day. There was a Bitcoin collapse. Maybe that just has me in the mood to kind of
hope somebody cashed in.
Yeah, I think somebody
You
did.
think somebody might have? Yeah.
Yes, I think quite a few people might have with that one. But I like to start off with the buys. I have bought in a lot of Big 12 quarterbacks this year, and I did think it was going to be the best conference as far as quarterback play goes, and it has delivered. And there was a quarterback at the beginning of the year who I don't think was mentioned with the likes of Sawyer Robertson and Baron Morton and Josh Hoover and Sam Levitt and all of them. I'm going to buy up some Brendan Sorsby because my man has been absolutely on fire this season. Finally has them in the top 25 where for some reason they're ranked ahead of Nebraska. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but 19 total touchdowns and 1 interception on the year. Andy's getting it done on the ground, as mentioned, with the total TDs. He's been really good with the football. I think we mentioned this the other day on the show. If he wants to leave Cincinnati, there's going to be, and with the quarterback market as crazy it is in the portal world, the market for him is going to be very, very rich. He's going to get a pretty significant pay bump either at Cincinnati to stay or somewhere else if he goes. And I think Cincinnati is a team just to keep an eye on that's sort of flying under the radar in that Big 12 race, that it feels as wide open as anything, especially Arizona State having some issues now with Sam Levitt getting blown out. I think Cincinnati's the real deal, and in big part because of Brendan Sorsby.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I've been on the Sorsby since he was at Indiana. I'm a big-time guy on him. I really like him a lot. I also think that the one thing we've seen take a step forward this season is that he's just become a better passer. And he struggled a lot in the Nebraska game, and I'm sure a lot of people who, unless you're like a Cincinnati fan, haven't really watched Cincinnati since the Nebraska game. He's been much better since that game, although he wasn't great last week, but he did enough.
3-0 in conference play. They are, you mentioned the Big 12 title picture, definitely lurking below the radar. The key games in terms of that Big 12 title picture, both on the road. They play both of our Holy War rivals. They are at Utah on November 1st. They play, not both on the road, excuse me. They play BYU at home on November the 22nd. Maybe a couple tricky spots along the way. Baylor, Arizona, and at TCU. This week, they are at Oklahoma State. Heavy favorites are the Bearcats.
All right, so I'm going to mix in some of these buys with some sells. I mentioned I had quite a few of them. This was a quick flip. I mean, this was kind of like opening up a crypto account just for the one day and then making the trade and then closing it out when you can, because I'm selling Nico. I'm selling, I hate to do this, but Jerry Neuhausel's been the hottest coach in the country, and I love him. And I think he's going to be in the mix for the UCLA job.
And I might be selling the 50-cent meme. Talk about me for.
I know. And if I was him, I would be I'd be working every angle I could to find a job right now. And here's the reason why. And maybe I'm selling just a little bit too early because they are actually a favorite against Maryland this weekend. So maybe they get one more week out of it. But I was looking at this earlier. I sent a tweet out. Does anybody know who has the toughest remaining schedule in the entire country?
Like on strength of schedule remaining?
According to ESPN FPI, remaining strength of schedule, the UCLA Bruins are your team. Maryland this week, then they have at Indiana, Nebraska at home, at Ohio State, Washington, who probably should be a top 25 team, and on the road at LA against their rival USC. I'm going to sell it now because I'm not ready for that volatility that's coming.
It's funny because you mentioned like the FPI remaining strength of schedule. You'd never hear this anywhere, but 4 of the top 7 most difficult schedules remaining are Big Ten schools.
It's funny. You don't hear that. All I hear about is South Carolina. Oh, who plays as hard as South Carolina does? All those ranked teams.
That's so crazy that you can read it on ESPN.com, but you don't hear it.
You don't hear it much.
Yeah.
No.
That's
You know what else is crazy, though? Do you know who's played the 4th most difficult strength of schedule to this point? The team that Chip Patterson doesn't even think deserves to be ranked. Illinois.
Hey, listen, when we expand the AP poll to 30, they'll definitely be in there. You know? Just not 8. But before we move on from UCLA, that is why there was such a strong reaction Danny, I want to like reset this because we were having honest discussions about 0-12.
Yes.
So when they rise up and
Yeah.
not only get one win, but then they follow it up with another. The reasons why there is such a strong emotional response was because there was a very like earnest, sad analysis that given UCLA's remaining schedule, they would not win a single football game this season. So then they get a couple, and we're going to make it a huge story. But you've brought,
which is great, and this is more about like I still think they've done an incredible job. I mean, it's been incredible the turnaround, and to see them have no pulse and losing to Group of 5 teams to all of a sudden getting road wins in the Big Ten is huge. And I love the story, and I'm a fan of it. I just think it might have run its course. We'll see if it can extend. Maybe it extends another week, but I might sell it a little bit early than I would like, and we'll see how it goes down the stretch.
I think it's a good call because like last week, Michigan State was my lock of the week. They were my Twitter tip of the day on Saturday. So I was very locked in on that game. And Nico didn't even play well. Like
right.
he was much better against Penn State and Northwestern. Last week against Michigan State, he was kind of average, and they still won by like what, 20 something. So yeah, I was very frustrated by that. So I think that's a good sell.
All right, my next buy, somebody we've talked a lot about on here, and maybe I'm a little bit late to the party. Maybe this is buying high. We've talked about him. CJ Carr as just flying under the radar. I haven't seen him on any Heisman lists. Maybe he doesn't belong up there, but he might get there by the end of the season. Just as far as seeing the field, presence, even in their losses, he played well enough to win. I mean, I thought the opening weekend, I thought he had the best performance, even though they didn't win the game at Miami. But now that we know about Miami's defense, the job they have done, CJ Carr absolutely is a buy here. And it sure does look, once they get past this hurdle, which is probably their last remaining hurdle, although that game at Pitt could be tricky for Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame's going to do what they did last year. And as much as we thought there was going to be a bit debate at 10-2, they're already, where do they rank right now? 13th? They're just going to keep pecking away at the order where it's not even going to be that much of a debate. We'll have to see what the selection committee does with them when they come out with their rankings. But it sure does appear that CJ Carr is the quarterback that's going to lead them home. Of course, he's got Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price in the backfield. Defense is finally coming around. But CJ Carr is really making great decisions. He looks comfortable. Ball's coming out really nice. He's playing outstanding.
And this week is an excellent litmus test, I think, because if you look at USC on the road, and I've harped on it, but Purdue threw for 305 yards on him. There was also Ryan Brown threw 3 interceptions, which hurt. But then the last time they were on the road, Luke Altmaier threw for 331 yards on him. So if CJ Carr doesn't throw for 300 yards, he kind of sucks. That's just really the only way it works.
Yep.
He's a redshirt freshman, right?
Yes.
Johnny Manziel, redshirt freshman, Heisman Trophy winner. Jameis Winston, redshirt freshman, Heisman Trophy winner. Caleb Williams, true sophomore, I think.
Yes, because he'd spent a year at Oklahoma first.
Yeah, and then Bryce Young, I can't remember if he was redshirt sophomore or true sophomore, but after Jaden Daniels was a senior, Travis Hunter, third-year player, was a junior. It is not crazy here in recent Heisman Trophy memory that somebody could just burst onto the scene and win the allure of the Heisman Trophy voters. In fact, if you want to galaxy brain this, it might be an advantage to have somebody just burst onto the scene leading the charge at the end of the way. I don't hate that buy from the Heisman standpoint, especially.
And it doesn't hurt that you wear the golden helmet on top and you're the Fighting Irish and you're the Notre Dame quarterback. It absolutely helps in that situation. 25-1 right now on FanDuel. Same exact odds as the quarterback he's going against. So if you had me picking one, because I think I bought Maeva earlier in the season. Yeah. I don't know. I probably might sell your Maeva now and swap it out and get some CJ Carr because I do like his chances coming down the stretch. All right. A sell here for me is a quarterback we discussed earlier in the show today in one of the bigger games of the weekend. And it is related to Nico. It's his replacement at Tennessee. Selling Joey Aguilar. His numbers have come back to earth. The competition's going to get much stiffer. I think he's going to struggle this weekend in Tuscaloosa. I kind of think Alabama clamps down on him, so I'm selling my Joey Aguilar stock and the whole, hey, we won the trade. Still think you might have. I don't think you lost it, but I do think the Joey Aguilar honeymoon's about to come to a close.
Yeah. So, famous last words again. Chris Brazzell is awesome. We have seen these Tennessee wide receivers under Josh Heupel have bananas games against everybody, right? But this we'll see.
I have another sell for you. This one may not be as obvious and it might upset some people, but bro Pribula was a little bit jittery. They're at home in the comfy confines going against that Alabama defense. Now he's got to go on the road against Auburn and one of the better defenses in the SEC. They're only a 1.5-point favorite. And I do worry about Missouri if they can't get Ahmad Hardy going. I don't think Bo Pribula is the quarterback that can help elevate their game. I still think he's very green. I think we got out a little bit of ahead of ourselves. All the Penn State people saying, "Oh, we had the wrong guy. We should have been playing him." I think he's going to start to hit a wall a little bit as well.
I mean, Bo Pribula is not out for the year, so Penn State fans are still 100% correct on that assessment. Yeah, he didn't look great against Alabama. I don't think anybody looked particularly wonderful against Alabama for Mizzou, and this is, but
there were plays to be made, though. I think that's the thing that's got to be disappointing for you. Throws that were there that he overthrew, even hitting simple checkdowns, not getting them to his guys. I just saw a jittery aspect that I didn't love, and now you got to go into a much harsher environment when their schedule already was pretty light. I think it's going to be a little bit bumpy.
Yeah, I don't think it's a foolish sale at all, but I will say if they struggle against Auburn, I'm not going to hold that against them because as I discussed earlier, everybody's struggling against Auburn's defense.
Right. I do not mean this to degrade what I do think are like a lot of really talented players involved with that game, but with the vibes that are packed into it, that game is like gas station speed. Or like some sort of like toxic, like will make you pee green type stuff. I mean, that you want to talk about like a home. What happens if Auburn's down like 14-0 early? Drink tiles it up, and then that place gets real toxic.
Then we're doing an emergency pod on Sunday.
I'll
be in a plane, so it won't be me.
One of the locks of the week is I've got no lock on that game. I do not want any of my emotions invested in Missouri-Auburn.
It is such a critical game for Auburn because they're on this 3-game skid. If they win it, all of a sudden they have Arkansas come. Like they have games they could win. They could go on a little bit of a run, and we'd be looking at them totally different. I don't know. It's a fascinating game. I have one more sell.
All right.
Hopefully by now, one of the favorite listeners of the pod, my co-host on my radio show, Dusty Dvorak, is not listening anymore. I'm selling John Mateer because I don't think it was all about the surgery. I don't think it was all about, the blood on the hand. I think it was about a quarterback who's a little bit loose with the football. And we saw him against Michigan have several throws that could have been intercepted, but they were not. We saw him have 3 interceptions against Texas and multiple others that might have been intercepted as well. He's a little bit too loose with the football. He loves dropping down with the sidearm throw. I think it leads to a really erratic result, which I think is why he misses some of these throws. I'm selling John Mateer as a Heisman Trophy candidate and probably as a quarterback that can get Oklahoma to the playoff this season.
Woo.
I have never fully bought in on the Mateer hype from when he was coming from Wazoo, so I don't really have a whole lot to sell, but I will say the fact that he played in that game last week earned a lot of respect for him from me.
100%. And that's one thing he's brought a lot of charisma, a lot of leadership, a lot of toughness that I think is outstanding. And maybe he can will his way there because he's an incredible runner with the football too. But I just think he's got to tighten it up throwing the football. He's a little bit too loose with the decision-making.
If he had a better offensive line and a better run game, then I think that you wouldn't ask him to have to play hero ball and have to make those decisions under duress. But that's just not where Oklahoma is right now. I just don't think that I don't think they are good enough in those other aspects of the offense for that not to be something that really hurts them. I mean, I think it was on the instant reaction pod. I mean, Tom and Danny were doing a little, not Tom and Danny, Tom and Bud were doing a little dance. They said all those interceptions that were dropped, they all came due at the same time. And it happened in that Texas game for sure. So it's, big thing to watch as Oklahoma tries to bounce back moving forward. Anything else?
Market is closed.
Market is closed. All right, before we get out of here, I'll just throw a hint. We gave Missouri Auburn a nice little note there. Texas Tech at Arizona State. Obviously, Sam Leavitt, huge dependent there. Texas A&M at Arkansas, Oklahoma at South Carolina. Any thoughts on any of those games? Just one-liners, things you're looking for from a matchup perspective.
Tech, Arizona State. I mentioned it earlier. Arizona State's offense has been kind of sneaky ass most of the year. I don't think their offensive line can hold up against Texas Tech's defensive line. I don't think that's going to be very good. And they're, especially in the red zone, like they've been bad. And I think they miss Cam Scatterbo quite a bit when you get to that part of the field. And then Oklahoma, South Carolina, man, first to 10 wins. Not 10 wins on the season, 10 points wins.
No. Yeah. First to the score of 10 on the scoreboard.
Agreed.
Is Texas A&M on upset alert?
Yes, because I would say their defense has been remarkable the last few weeks. It's been a huge turnaround, but they haven't been on the road since the Notre Dame game, and that was the last time their defense looked like booty. So this is an Arkansas offense that, for all the faults that this team has on defense, they can move the ball on you on offense. So I want to see what A&M's defense looks like on the road against this team.
I was impressed. I was curious to see how they'd be after the firing, because I do think those players really liked Sam Pittman. I questioned Bobby Petrino's ability to motivate and get those players really enthusiastic, play for him and his interim job. They played really well last week, so I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again. Jalen Green's a problem too. He can move. He can get out of the pocket. He can be a problem.
He's also a problem for themselves too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I was going back. I told you I did the rewatch, and I was like, has the Arkansas punter seen the field yet? Went back. I think it's 11 full offensive possessions, 2 punts. They were moving the ball effectively. Real quick, uploaded in the tailgate, a little ACC corner. I'll entertain it. Duke, Georgia Tech, or Miami, Louisville.
Huge game for Tech.
Yeah.
To get through this, I think that you're looking pretty good in the ACC.
As an underdog.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Brom, amazing honesty. Talking about Miami's defensive front. And we've talked about Louisville's offensive line, remember, at times?
Yeah.
Yes.
Miller Moss is in for a long night, and he hasn't handled pressure well.
He said there's some things that we can scheme, and there's some times where we're just going to have to ask our guys to man up and make a play.
Yep.
He seems to know, because as he pointed out, Miami's not doing anything complicated. It's not trickeration.
No.
They just line up and beat you. They've got better players than you do.
There's a coach in the ACC who should probably pay attention to that. Thinks that maybe he could just out-scheme teams.
Keep your eye on that. All right, we will be back on Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Best time of the week, so we can unveil our best bets for the week. Come early, get up the likes. You give likes, we give locks. Locks move lines. You know the way that this goes. So come and hang out, youtube.com/cover3. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Danny Kanell. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you.